This question requires us to be able to understand what a slowdown in economic growth actually means, and also understand that in a case when there is a slowdown in economic growth, the economy is along the rising cost condition, while a moderate aggregate demand exists. The sources of information necessary for this question includes, firstly, to be able to define inflation and economic growth, second, to be able to explain what slow economic growth means, and third, to be able to explain and diagrammatically illustrate how slow economic growth may be accompanied by an increase in inflation when the economy is at the rising cost condition. In the introduction, we firstly define inflation as a sustained, inorderate, and general increase in prices. When inflation occurs, it implies that the price level has increased over the previous year, and this is measured by the Consumer Price Index, also known as CPI. And then we move on to define what economic growth means, which refers to the growth in production in terms of actual or potential production capacity. Following which, we state that slow economic growth may lead to a fall in real GDP, which is the value of GDP in real terms after correcting for inflation. In the main body, we set our first perspective in explaining the meaning of slow economic growth and how it occurs. Slow economic growth may arise in the economy due to the following reasons. First, the economy may lack financing in terms of lower tax revenue and reserve build-up from previous budget, which implies less funds for the government to use in their financing of budget, which consequently result in limited government expenditure. The economy may also suffer from the loss of export competitiveness due to their changing terms of trade or loss of comparative advantage, which limits the net export growth of the country. Furthermore, lower business sentiments and consumer confidence may also impact the influence of investment and consumption expenditure on the economy, and these factors contribute to the economy facing slower growth. Then we move on to our second perspective in explaining why slow economic growth will contribute to inflation. So with a slow increase in aggregate demand, when the economy is at the rising cost condition, demand pull inflation will ensue. Demand pull inflation occurs as a result of the rise in aggregate demand, leading to an excess demand condition and a rise in the price level when the economy is experiencing rising cost condition or full employment condition. As such, even when the economy experiences slow economic growth, with moderate increase in aggregate demand, inflationary pressures will arise. Having explained our economic causation, then we will move on to explain it diagrammatically. As seen from diagram 1, there is an increase in aggregate demand from AD1 to AD2, which will lead to an increase in real GDP from Y1 to Y2. However, at the same time, prices will increase from P1 to P2, given that the economy is experiencing rising cost condition. In addition, when the economy is at full employment at Y2, the economy will experience an increase in national income in terms of nominal GDP, but an increase in prices at the same time, and as a result there is no increase in real GDP. Finally, we'll evaluate the depending factors in the occurrence of inflation when there is slow economic growth. Such a condition of inflation occurring simultaneously with slow economic growth is only when there is a full employment condition. Furthermore, it depends on prevailing cost condition, as any corresponding cost push inflation will lead to a fall in real GDP instead. In conclusion, the government should be aware of the increase in prices possibly occurring when there is slow economic growth, so as to alleviate both the inflationary impact while stimulating economic growth.